Ready to rock and roll. We
Let's
are
go.
here weekly. Today we're going to be talking about something that is near and dear to my heart. It's all about startups. It's all about GTM. Why most startups stall before they scale. To do that, we brought in Jake. Jake and I, he's currently the co-founder of a company called Revenue Reimagined. But Jake, when did we first? I mean, oh man, it's been what, maybe 10 years, dude? We're
More.
old.
Yeah, more. Yeah. Like I think we're pretty old, man. I think we're the boomers of SaaS at this point.
Yeah. I think you were maybe high. No, where higher view?
Higher you may have been at some point. It goes probably back to a good mutual friend of ours, Gabe via Mizar.
Yeah,
Maybe.
dude. In fact, I tried to get breakfast with him, and he's standing me up, and I got to get with him. It's been too long, Gabe.
I'll tell him.
Well, man, I appreciate you taking the time. He's been doing some cool stuff. Can you maybe, before we jump in, don't walk us through day to day because we don't have the time, but tell us a little bit about Revenue Reimagined and kind of the cool things you guys have been doing the last few years.
Awesome. Well, we've only been together for a couple of years, right? So Dale and Adam started about 2 years ago, and then I joined about 18 months ago. So I just hit 18 months with them as a partner. But like the story we all kind of tell is, dude, we've been through it. We've been in the trenches. CROs at different companies. We've scaled from 0 to 1 at certain places, from 50 to 100, and I've even led global teams at Adobe, and we've all gained our different battle wounds. You know what I mean? And I think we all say kind of tongue in cheek, like we're recovering CROs because we've seen it all. And at some point we all kind of share the story that like we decided we wanted to go on our own.
Yeah.
And at least for me specifically, I am not one to go alone. And so I've always wanted to do this with awesome partners.
Yeah.
Known Dale for almost as long as I've known you. Someone I just like trust dearly and think is an incredible operator. And he introduced me to Adam, who definitely complements the weaknesses that Dale and I have. But the biggest thing I'd say is like what we've been doing is we started early on with this idea of like fractional CROs, and it quickly expanded into realizing there's so much more that needs to get done. And so we've been developing a framework that maybe we'll talk about later called Gap. And now getting into really how do we operationalize this even further through AI systems, and making this even more repeatable.
Yeah. Well, and that's where I love. And so let's dive in, man, because I want to dive into this GTM gap and some of the things you've been learning over the last couple of years and how you're coaching companies, because it feels like it's harder than, and I'm not trying to just be a punk. Like it feels like it's harder than ever to win right now. I don't know if it's just more noise or, the AI, or I don't know. It just feels harder. So I'd love to get into some of that. So let's start big picture though. Right now it feels like, the recipe often for startups has been more, well, the game. It's like you get a little traction. Let's throw some sales reps at it. Let's hope they can win. And all of a sudden we find ourselves, fairly soon in this kind of place that's uncomfortable. It's like the board's frustrated. We're not seeing the growth. Pipeline stalled. And as I said, it feels like today it's a little bit harder than it's ever been. Paint the picture for me as to what you're seeing out there. I mean, you can go real big picture. You can go even a little tighter, but you're talking to a bunch of companies. You seeing people growing fast. You seeing people stalling quick. Like, give me the state of the state to start, and then let's get into how you guys have kind of started to diagnose and approach that.
Sure. You said it kind of earlier that it's harder to win than it's ever been. Well, like it's harder to win what game? And what I mean by that is when the rules, like I think the rules have been fairly similar and haven't changed a crazy amount over maybe the last 8 years. And then the last 2 years, those rules just completely got thrown out the window. And so we're playing a totally different game.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's almost gotten to the point where quarterly the rules are changing. So that in and of itself has become a big thing that we're seeing, is that we see founders trying to operate on playbooks that worked for them 5 years ago.
And what are some of what are some of those playbooks that come to mind where you're like, man, it's a little different now. Like that isn't working as well as it was.
Well, so like basic, right? One that's just, we should not be playing the inefficiency game, right? Like if sometimes we still come across teams that are trying to just throw warm bodies at and hiring huge SDR teams. That should have been over a while ago, right?
Look, man, I still think that's valid. That's a big. In fact, this is fun. So, yeah, that is still. I mean, I think a lot of people have caught on to that one, but dude, I mean, to your point, you're winning a little bit, and like if I'm winning as a founder and I've been able to sell, why can't I just add 10 SDRs and they'd be able to do the same? If I build it, they'll come, the pipeline will come or something, But okay, that's a bad one. Are you seeing some other things that you're like, man, these are some of the playbooks that are just not the same? They just it's different.
Yeah, I think I'm seeing one recycle right now. This is interesting, and maybe we pause on it and come back to it in a minute. But like we learned already 5, 6, 7 years ago from the rush of the tools like Outreach and Sales Loft and Tout App even before then, right? Like we learned valuable lessons about what not to do with outbound automation and sequencing. And we learned that spamming didn't work. And we learned that, that we had to get more personalized. And then we learned that we had to get more relevant. And then we started using that playbook and it started working. And then all of a sudden AI came in the picture and really like automation with Clay and tools like that. And everyone threw that knowledge out the window. And now what we're seeing is like people going back to that old high volume spam playbook, but just feeling better about it because somehow like AI or like Clay triggers and is doing something different when it really isn't.
We're getting kind of the same results. I think
we're getting this. We're probably getting worse results because now they're also burning their domains and their reputation at the same time, and the deliverability is worse than it's ever been. Like, I think actually it's worse.
Yeah, man. So you often I've heard you use this word like GTM graveyard. Is that some of the? I mean, are these playing into that? Like, look, a lot of companies running older playbooks, thinking they're running modern one. I love that one because that's like an old playbook with a skin on it with AI.
It's a zombie playbook.
And it's like, oh, that I know that playbook. We called it something different back in 15, 18 or 20 or whatever. We were spamming the crap out of people. But now we call it agentic email, and it's still 0.001% open rates. But now I'm sending 10,000 of them. Oh, now don't get me wrong. I mean, certain industries, I see it on LinkedIn sometimes, Mr. Email. I don't think he likes me anymore. Let's not get into that. But I think, look, some of these industries are working. So I don't want to say, spamming doesn't work. There are places that work, but as a rule of thumb, it probably isn't working that much. But GTM graveyard, is that kind of what you're referring to sometimes when you bring that up? Like companies are they're dying in this spot, trying some old playbooks, and it just ain't working.
Pretty much, right? Like the playbooks that are already dead or in the graveyard, like people are running off of those rules or those playbooks, those motions, those frameworks, and they're expecting to get new results, and it's not working. And so it's playing by rules that have been outdated, even a year ago. And so if you're not updating your motion, your playbook, rethinking your ICP, rethinking your persona, rethinking your messaging, even at this point, I know it sounds wild, but even in a quarterly pace, wow, you're pacing to end up in this graveyard as well, because your competitors are, and then because of the access to AI and some of the things that can accelerate for you or your competition, research, macro trends, micro trends, like understanding all this. If you're not utilizing that to help drive you to a better position to sell to your personas, you're playing in the dark.
I love it. So you then use the word, this GTM gap. So you kind of built your company around this idea, and you've kind of got a framework. Let's move into that. How have you then helped companies, one, start to identify this, because sometimes we think we're better than we are, but maybe identify that we're struggling more than, again, maybe we realize, and then start to build towards a different future. What is working? I want to hear some of your thoughts on how you've coached companies, because, man, a lot of us aren't winning. How are you finding it? So how do you kind of use this GTM gap to help people identify and then start to improve?
So what we identified pretty quickly as we started working together was like, hey, there are certain things that are pretty consistently failing for founders, and we're seeing it now at a higher scale, like running this consultancy, and whether we're working with these clients or we're just talking to them, we're starting to get at this idea of like consistently certain challenges are just repeating themselves, and the gap to revenue is getting wider and wider and wider.
Yeah.
And what are the core motions, the core plays, the core foundational pillars or elements that need to happen to get through certain stages? And what we realized was for ourselves, what we've kind of labeled it is in this GTM gap is that there's 4 phases of what I would call GTM maturity, right? So we come in at the base, it's stability or stabilization.
Yep.
Is a company able to like stabilize and continue to drive revenue during the early stage challenges they're facing during growth? The next thing is foundation. Are you laying the foundational pieces that you can build the rest of your go-to-market framework on top of as you start going through these different scaling stages? Then there's foundation. From foundation, there's a repeatability. So like, okay, if we can track it and we can measure it, then we can start like repeating it. And then if we can repeat it, the next phase is scalability. Now, what we see is so many founders are trying to skip over, oftentimes even like from the foundation phase all the way to scalability, and they're missing like the basic steps in between of really nailing down who are we selling to? What is the persona? What is the problem that we're selling for them? Do we even know the difference between user and buyer personas? Like, do they, like a lot of founders haven't even figured this out for their teams. Have they learned valuable lessons from founder-led sales themselves? Yeah. Then moving from there, like, have we figured out the pricing model that really helps us win the same way to the same persona every single time? So like the list can go on and on and on, but like the idea is, you have to figure out how to nail what we're doing this way over and over and over before we go to every which direction.
But there is that kind of the maturity curve framework where you're like, hey, we need to understand where you are so that we can kind of help you get from, A to ultimately Z. And that's how you kind of coach companies to do it.
Yeah.
As you've interacted, then I like the 4 steps. So just so I got it, it was stability, foundation, something, and scale.
Repeatability and scale.
Repeatability, scale. Got it. So where do you feel like most companies are when you're talking to them? I mean, always at the very bottom, or you're like, no, I mean, most people are in that phase.
Yeah, like at the beginning, we were thinking like they would fall into one category and then we would move them to the next. And that's actually a realization is that's not the case.
Oh,
at different parts of the business. So we have this massive audit that we do for every single one of our new clients. And it's a kind of like 100-point inspection of all things go to market, from operations strategy down through demand marketing, sales, account management, customer success, like rev ops, all of it. We go through all of it and we audit where they're at. We ask questions, we figure out what the maturity is, and then we provide a score. And over and over and over, what we realize is within these core categories, they can, in some cases, be more mature than others. And therefore, like, we need to identify what are the highest priorities. So oftentimes, like, marketing can be in this foundation phase, but sales is in certain cases going to be in like stability because they're bleeding, or sales and marketing are doing well, but CS is churning like crazy. And so we need to go back to stability.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Well, fascinating, dude. In these audits, what are, and again, we obviously, you haven't done a full audit on me, or you can't go through it in detail, but want to hit some broad strokes. Like, what are some of the patterns you're seeing in audits? It's kind of like some of the challenges we were maybe talking about before. Is it really unique for all companies, or you're like, typically, Gabe, here's a couple of the main challenges I've seen as we've gone through these audits?
Yeah, good point. Well, if I were to audit you, Gabe, here's what I'd tell you. I'd just give up, throw it away, just want and go home.
Here's my hair. You'd be like, honestly, this hair, it looks like bedhead, so you probably need.
Yeah, okay, so certain things we see pretty frequently. People's data is a mess.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why and how this happens. But they never build a kind of a data framework or like an architecture from day one, thinking like, okay, here's how we're gonna collect and protect our data. And then as the business starts scaling, they just kind of build on and on and on. And they get to a point where the CRM is so effed up that they're going to start trying to solve it with like a third party data lake, and then trying to visualize data in another tool system. But then they've got all this deduping, and like, it's crazy to me that you don't start with just a data architecture from day one and thinking about how do we protect data so we trust our data. I'm telling you, Gabe, how many times have you worked somewhere where the team actually didn't trust the data?
Oh, I don't know if I've ever worked anywhere with the team trusts the data.
Right? Like, no, like people don't trust their data. So that's a wild one to me that we see.
What's your quick, trying to get some quick cheat codes from you? Like, what's your quick answer to that? Like, how do your advice is like, yeah, you guys, you got to spend some time even early to just get that data structure. What's the quick answer?
It kind of goes back to the whole like philosophy, like start with the end in mind. So what I do there with my teams is like, what do we want to see, right? Here's the things we need to be able to track.
Yeah.
Identify all those things. We go through that exercise of everything that we need to visualize in a dashboard, of the data points we need to do. What are the leading indicators, the lagging indicators? What are the leading indicators of revenue sales? What are the lagging indicators? What are the leading indicators of retention?
Sure.
The leading indicators of value for our clients. Then thinking through that, start putting that into a visual. Like I have it laid out in a spreadsheet in this exercise where by every stage. Before that, then define what are our lead cycles, like our lead life cycle stages, and then our deal stages. Yeah. So everyone's on the same page. Everyone knows what you mean when you say an MQL. Yeah. Everyone knows what you mean when it's it's surprising to me when people are still arguing over what's a deal and what's an MQL. Yeah. So we have to get the definitions right. Then we got definitions right. Then we got to say, okay, by stage, what are all the fields then we need to track? The properties that need to be captured in order to get to the endpoints that matter most to the business. And then where do we collect those, and what are the inputs for those? And so it's thinking through how do we build the system to be able to get to the data and the insight that we need, and then how do we support that through the integrations that we have, as opposed to working backwards.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. It's funny. Some of the basics, right? I don't want to say basics, but yeah, when you bring up a word like what is a deal, or, what is a stage? Like, are we on the same page? Because it's hard to get your data right if you don't have kind of your process right, because your data's got to kind of support the process, and the process obviously supports the person there. Okay, good. I like that. Let's keep going. Let's hit a few others. Like what else has popped up in some of your audits that is maybe a consistent theme that you're a little like, yeah, this is crazy.
I'm still surprised that I'm seeing companies operating solely on top-down modeling or top-down forecasting.
Oh,
and what I mean by this is we've all been there.
Yeah.
Right? The board gives you a number. The leadership team scrambles to figure out we're going to do it. And we overcommit in the board meeting. Then we come down back to the team and say, well, here's the number. Figure out how to get there. Then the exercise becomes everyone working through magic math and spreadsheets, trying to figure out how do we take close rates from 18% to 25%. Well, let's just put the number in there. We'll figure it out. And then how do we take conversion rates from MQLs to SQLs? And it's like, all of a sudden you end up with this spreadsheet that's complete bullshit that has no reflection on what actually is happening in the business, but everyone's building plans off of it and hiring off of it and budgeting off of it. That's chaos.
It is chaos, man.
It's daily.
But look, I love those conversations. It's like, well, why are we going from 20 to 30% close rate? It's like, well, we got to show some improvement year over year, don't we? It's like, yeah, I guess. I don't know how we're going to do that, but we'll just figure it out. We'll just put in.
Well, you know what those conversations then turn into? When you plan and you build that way, it turns into a finger pointing, emotional debating in the boardroom and in the executive closed door meetings, because everyone's covering their ass because no one believed in it in the first place and was bought in.
Yeah.
Alternatively, these conversations should be trade-off conversations. So what I mean by that is you fix this by building bottom-up planning, right? And you show based on actual capacity, currently where people are performing today. What does an MQL cost? What's a top of funnel lead cost? What's an average deal size? What does the average rep take to ramp? How many deals do the current reps closed. And you take all of those actual
Yeah,
inputs
I like
and
it.
you build a plan bottom up and you say, if we do nothing different and we continue this way for the next 12 months, where do we land?
Yeah.
Then you have a discussion of, okay, now what are the trade-offs? If we invest here, what happens? If we invest here, what happens? And then we can start thinking about, well, then what levers do we need to pull and what needs to change? And you have a real conversation.
Yeah.
Because like, have you ever tried to change 10 of these inputs at the same time?
On a spreadsheet I have, it's pretty fun. It's like, dude, if we just put our deal size from 10,000 to 100,000, we're going to be millionaires.
It's nuts. And people are building these plans like saying that like, oh, we're going to get to this goal if we increase revenue by like average deal size by 20%, if we close rates by 10%, and if we improve our sales cycle by this. But what's crazier is actually if you have compound impact and you just improve each of these levers by 1%, you're going to have a better outcome than like the big swings.
That's super powerful. Yeah, look, that one, that is such a bore. Man, someone needs to write a book on that. Like, how many times have you had that? All right, we're going to do 100 million this year, top down, and it's just like what pursues is just chaos.
It's chaos, and everyone gets fired, and that's why CMO.
Sales. You hire 100 reps, you fire 100 reps. So your key on that is, guys, you got to start thinking bottom up. And when you do, I liked your last point. Once you start playing with that bottom up model, you know what you can realistically do. And then it is this fun conversation about, what are a few levers we can pull to kind of move that in a more, aggressive manner. And that becomes something that is potentially more real. Because when you start so fake and you change 50 levers, it turns into just chaos. I can't even think about it. I've just had so many conversations where it's just pure chaos. I want to get one more from you, man, before we break today. These are fun. What's a third one? And I love the advice. So something you've seen maybe more consistently in these audits that you're trying to help companies overcome. Anything come to mind?
I think the biggest one I actually posted on this maybe this week is we don't have time to play politics.
Oh,
and what I see more damaging to an organization than any of these things is a team that can't get aligned and cohesively and trust. I'm telling you, it doesn't matter how brilliant the playbook is. It doesn't matter how innovative the technology is. Doesn't matter how incredible the individual contributors are. If the team at the top doesn't trust, doesn't align, doesn't breed a culture of it, and everyone is playing political games, you're done.
No, it's a great one, man. This one. I don't know if we have enough time to jump into this one, but I don't know if you could not have game. I don't know if it's like human nature, because what I've found. Now look, if everything's winning and everybody's winning and you're going from 5 to 10 to 20 to 40, and you're double, triple, double, whatever that thing used to be, politics are a little harder. But man, if there's roughness in the business, and people start to feel, I've seen the animal instinct kick in multiple times where it's my family, it's my food, it's my plate. And dude, hard times come and people, it's their livelihood, man. And all of a sudden it's like, you really want me to come to the table and just be like, oh yeah, my marketing team sucks. They totally suck. We don't know what we're doing here. Can somebody help? It's just not human nature. I gotta be like, dude, the sales team can't handle my leads. They're idiots. I mean, can you really not have politics in an org? If there's toughness, is that?
I think if you create an organization that values candor, that values honesty and trusts and principles over people, and this is a whole broader conversation because that gets people worked up when I say this, but principles matter over people. And here's what I mean. If you align on core principles that matter most to actually driving behavior and vision and trust forward, then the people are treated correct. The people are empowered. People are able to feel success. But when you're playing on the same team, and then you're betting on your teammates to lose, what the hell is that?
I know.
Like, what the hell is that? So my belief is, instead of saying, like, coming to the conversation saying like, oh, my team sucks or this team sucks, like, if more people could come to the conversation and say, hey, I messed up as a leader, I own this, and this is what I was thinking differently. And
you're asking for some serious maturity right there. To come in as a sales leader, you're not hitting your number, and to come in and own it and like be like, honestly, like it's on me or something. Like, that's just a lot, dude. That's a lot to expect. I mean, your word candor is an awesome one, because I wouldn't say I haven't seen this in organizations. I've experienced it. So I was being a little bit of a punk when I was saying it's not possible, but it's so hard. The joke of sales and marketing not getting along, it's a long-standing joke for 100 years. You and I have been doing this because it happens every 90% of the time. But the candor word, the ego word, the first team concept, whoever wrote that book, your first team's the E team, that stuff, that's real. And if you've got it starts at the top, man. Because if you've got a CEO who can come in and call people's BS out, because look, sometimes you can't expect every time a marketing leader to come to the table and be like, I do suck. You're going to have someone, and it's best if it's not a peer. So it's best if it's not the sales leader coming and being like, hey, you suck. It's best if you're in the room and the CEO, the divorce lawyer, the arbiter, the middle person doesn't just say work it out, sales and marketing, but says, you know what? BS. Like, call them out, pull them back into the fray.
Yep.
And then let's come together. And then that marketing person can't have the egos, got to do it. But that candor, authenticity, ego, a leader who actually drives it. Because, man, I've seen a couple people be like, oh, you know what? Sales and marketing, you work it out or something. I'm not here to like, no. Look, if you're the CEO, call it like you see it, man. And tell them they suck or something. It's hard, bro. This is hard stuff, though. This is hard stuff, man. Do you feel like, sorry, you hit a chord. Do you feel like that's one of the advantages of having some fractional people?
Absolutely. Yeah, because I don't have to play the politics, and I can call it out for what it is, and I don't have to pause for a moment and say, like, how is this going to affect my role tomorrow, and how is this going to affect my paycheck? Right? I can.
That's fine.
Right. And you know what's interesting is the most painful and honest and raw conversations I see with my clients is when we do our initial audit. And you want to know what the most common feedback I get from those audits is from founders is, wow, that was the best meeting I've had in over a year or over 6 months. And they love it because it holds everyone so accountable, and people are so raw and so honest. And yet it's such a safe conversation. People actually crave it. People crave the honesty. They want to know where they stand. They just want to know they're safe.
Yeah, that's the problem, is as soon as that safe word, and I think that's where people get scared, because, man, like I said, as soon as you start to mess with Papa Bear and my family, whereas the fractional thing, that's right. That attitude is such a great attitude. I'm only here to help. If you want to fire me, like, that's a true, I only want to win. But, man, when it's your job and you're nervous about losing it in the markets, I think people get a little scared. How do you coach companies through any quick advice on the politics before we wrap? Like, how do you get to the candor, to the rawness, to the authenticity?
Oh, man, that's a whole session. But it does start with making sure that leadership is bought in. Like, that has to start at the CEO level.
Yeah.
The CEO has to really exude principles matter in the business. And then that has to feed into all parts of the business. One of the little things that I do with comp plans, for example, is I write in performance plans, but I also write in cultural performance plans. And what that means is, like, hey, look, these are the principles that we align to on this team. And that looks like teamwork, participation, honesty. And if you don't meet that, you can be on a plan 2. And here's what it looks like.
Yeah, because, man, I've found so many times in management, it's not just about how you achieve it's not just achieving your goal, it's how you achieve your goal, and your team and culture matter a ton, man. So, well, time is up. Probably need to bounce. Jake, appreciate the dialogue today. Appreciate you taking the time. If someone wants to dive in a little more, GTM Graveyard, GTM Gap, I mean, this assessment sounds cool. What's the best way to get in touch with you guys, learn a little more?
Just come to the website, revenue-reimagined.com. You can even get an assessment on your go-to-market maturity on the website. So just come check it out.
Cool. All right, man. Well, hey, again, appreciate the time for the audience. Have a fantastic day.
All right, Gabe. See you, man.